20th of May, 2012. My mother was admitted into hospital for an operation which then had further complications. I revised my first ever GCSE exams at 14 years old on the chair by her side. 25th of December, 2020. I spent most of my Christmas days side by side with my father, who was admitted into hospital after contracting COVID-19. These experiences are pretty standard to my older sister and I, both of whom are young carers to both of my parents who are deaf. This was our duty. But what's the real problem? Young carers in the UK have one of these issues. 47% of 16 to 17-year-old young carers in the United Kingdom say they're unhappy with their mental health. In London, ethnic minority groups earn 23.8% less on average compared to their white counterparts. And free school meal pupils, i.e. those from low-income households, go on to earn, or half of them on average, earn £17,000 a year or less by the time they're 30 years old. So is the problem that their outcomes may be determined by the preconceptions they have of their own life stories? According to these statistics, I should probably have poor mental health. According to these statistics, I should be earning 23.8% less than my white counterparts. And according to these statistics, I should be earning £17,000 a year or less in 6 years' time when I'm 30. Should I be accepting the life story that was already written for me? So here's my view. I've always been a young carer. It's been my duty. And for me, it was the foundation of my life. Under the guidance of my tenacious older sibling, we tried to turn this adversity into a positive. I was a much more mature teenager at the time. I was a better and more empathetic communicator because of my duty for my parents, and ultimately had a much stronger drive than I think I may have had otherwise, because of my deep desire to give back to my parents and my deep gratitude of what they've done for me. And this ultimately led me to, or supporting my life experiences, led me to building a $20 million business by the age of 21. Fundamentally, I believe that we are the chefs in our own kitchens. We start off life with a set of ingredients, and it's our sole duty to make the best possible meal called life that we can. In fact, it's the essence of life's journey itself. If we don't make an incredible meal by the end, that's not down to the ingredients that we started with, for example, our upbringing, our environment. It's down to our response to it. So let's dig a bit deeper into the problem. Harvard Business Review released a study around something called the set up to fail syndrome. It's where individuals, commonly from minority backgrounds, go into the workplace with limiting beliefs around their abilities. They feel limited in their abilities and their capabilities because of their background. And as explained by Maxwell Maltz in the book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which is one I'd strongly recommend, he explains that the brain cannot distinguish between imagination and reality. So these people go into the workplace imagining or believing they're less capable than others, and ultimately they are less capable than others. And that leads to their vicious cycle or their downfall. So going back a bit into my story, when I was 17 years old, I started my first business. An online estate agency that grew to the third largest in the country and sold over £1 billion worth of homes. In this journey, I took some difficult decisions. Having started at 17, I decided to ditch my plans to go to university and instead start the business. So at the time, my friends were enjoying themselves at university for the first couple of years. And I was stuck there knocking on doors in the wintertime, in the cold, trying to win my first piece of business. Call after call, door after door, weekly, monthly, and beyond. So what gave me that false sense of confidence to take that different path? For me, this came down to two key things, two key mindset shifts that mattered. Firstly, around confidence, and secondly, around identity. Firstly, confidence. Confidence should not be based on the certainty of your outcome or certainty of success. Because in entrepreneurship, for example, there is no certainty of success. For me, confidence was about the belief in myself that I could figure it out along the way. If I believed that I could figure things out, that was confidence to me in a timeless sense. And secondly, identity. What identity shift did I need to have to build that confidence? Identity is about the story that you tell yourself as an individual. How do you perceive your own self-image, especially in different environments? If I perceived myself going into investor meetings at 18 years old as a kid who didn't deserve to be there, I'd probably start behaving like a kid that didn't deserve to be there. Instead, I went in with the approach that I was a dutiful young carer, an entrepreneur who sold sweets at school, and a strong academic who deserved to be there. Once I started changing that inward approach for me, my outward conviction changed as a result. Remember, the brain will impose self-limiting beliefs based on your labels. You label yourself as a kid, you behave like a kid. You label yourself as a bad driver, you will probably be a bad driver. So what about when times get difficult? Because they do. Things come crashing down and we face challenges. I've had my fair share, I'm sure we all have too. In my case, when building the business, I made bad hires, laptops being thrown across rooms, COVID lockdowns, almost going bust 3 times over, broken relationships, and ultimately, me walking away from that business 2 years ago. Can we rely on the confidence or identity realignment? Potentially. But this is where resilience comes in. And here's what I learned about resilience in that journey. Firstly, that resilience is a muscle. Secondly, I learned and realized that humans are built for this. And thirdly, I appreciated something called the dichotomy of control. So firstly, resilience is a muscle. We may not realize, but resilience is a muscle that can be trained. The more we go through difficult times, that muscle becomes stronger and we become better at dealing with those things. So times or challenges may not get easier, we just become better at dealing with them. The way I visualize it is like an evidence bank. Every time I dealt with a difficult challenge, I put that piece of evidence into the evidence bank. So next time I had something to refer to prove to myself that I could overcome the challenge. Secondly, we are built for this. Humans are built for this. We have something that we may not know innately built into our brains called the success mechanism. Humans find purpose and fulfillment from driving towards these goals, from overcoming these challenges. We are actually made to walk uphill as human beings. A quote from Albert Einstein says that humans are like bicycles. We maintain balance as long as we keep moving forward. So trust yourself in the process. Another one of my favorite Stoic quotes is that pressure is a privilege. If you are facing pressure, you should be grateful because you're sat outside of the comfort zone and that's where growth happens. So it's a privilege to feel such pressure. And finally, the dichotomy of control, only focusing on what's within your control. A beautiful line again of Stoic questioning from a great author, Mo Gawdat, goes as follows when dealing with difficult times. Firstly, ask yourself if what you're telling yourself about that challenge is true. Secondly, if it is true, what can you do about it? And thirdly, if it's not true, what can you start to do despite or because of its presence to make your life better regardless? So again, ask yourself if what you're telling yourself is true. Secondly, if it is, what can you do about it? And thirdly, if it's not true, what can you do regardless, despite or because of its presence to make your life better? So, to summarize, what's the lesson here? That building a $20 million business by the age of 21 makes you successful? Absolutely not. It's the principles that matter. The principles that can be applied to students, to teachers, to bankers, professionals, athletes, entrepreneurs, and beyond. It's the mindset shift that you are going to make it. Even if you can't see the finish line, you are going to get there. That you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Think about what changes in life when you start to accept the problems that come your way and start to accept the ingredients that you started off with in life and pursue and embrace the journey of making the best possible meal that you can, rather than catastrophizing or victimizing yourself. So to summarize, the key principles are focused around the above. Firstly, control. Only focus on what's within your control. Secondly, identity. What's the identity you're creating for yourself that you want to create? What story are you going to tell yourself? Thirdly, evidence. What evidence can you input into the evidence bank to reaffirm and reconfirm this identity that you want to create? And finally, find it within yourself to embrace the journey, because happiness and purpose is ensued throughout life and not pursued as a destination. So whilst I continue to write my own story and whilst you'll continue to write your own, just remember that you can be the editor of your own life story. Thank you.